Is this skirting the line of martial law?
Carjackings in the city are down 85%.
85%?
Since President Trump did this. Americans are just sick of being doublespeaked to. They're sick of the media contorting the story and telling them things that their own eyes are telling them are lies.
What does it look like if MS-13 pushes back against the National Guard and happens to fire upon them?
Whoever it is that threatens our soldiers, they will see violence like an act of God coming at them.
We are seeing Army National Guard get activated into different cities, LA, DC. Let's talk about going to Chicago. There's talk about coming here to Nashville, Memphis. It's kind of like the gun rights thing. It's fucking tricky, and I mean, Chicago, I think that's still still the leading murder capital of the country,
I
correct?
think so.
And Memphis is, a close second. Nashville's got a lot of violent crime. We all know about what goes on in LA. We all know about what goes on in DC. And, but I think the fear is, ever since COVID, it's been, everybody's got fear of, government overreach, and rightly so, correct? Yep. So, I mean, is this skirting the line of martial law? And the caveat to that is, I just think, what would I think? If I was in Chicago or St. Louis or DC or, Memphis, and I have kids, I don't want my fucking kids getting shot at, and I'm tired of seeing, our youth, anybody just get killed, you know what I mean, from the violent crimes out there. And so, one, I'm worried about martial law, government overreach. On the other hand, if I put myself in that situation and I live in Chicago and I'm like, I don't want to go through National Guard checkpoints, and I don't want to see National Guard everywhere. I want to believe it, but it's not that way. And so maybe if I lived there, I would be more open to it. Like, well, we got to clean this shit up one way or another, and so I'm just, I'm curious, but the same token, I mean, they keep voting for the same type of people that are not going to clean this up. And so do they want it cleaned up? You know what I mean? So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I think just to narrow in on DC, I worked on President Trump's campaign for much of the campaign season with the vice president, and ended up getting to talk to and be part of a lot of conversations with voters. And if you talk to, in my opinion, the average American voter, like the types of crime and the decay that we have allowed in our big cities is offensive as a nation. Like what a government's primary role is for its people, in my opinion, is to provide security and safety. That's from international threats, and that's from within our border. And I think what you've seen President Trump do is rightly and righteously react to the voter sentiment and the mandate he was given to stop the violent criminals coming over our border in record numbers. This is not political rhetoric. That just, if you actually look at the quantitative data of the number of humans that illegally came over our borders in the 4 years before, it was insanity. It's like we think back to this time of Ellis Island and like this influx of new Americans coming, and we as a nation had consented to that. We in the previous 4 years hadn't consented to this, and you had this insane number of human beings from just the inaction of the federal government leading to all these downstream bad effects in communities. And so if you look at DC, one of my experience so far has been, and we mentioned it earlier at breakfast, but when I got this Secretary of the Army role and then the acting director of ATF, if you had told me on my bingo card that I would have had a spot where we would be working on the same mission together, I would have told you were crazy. But it's been amazing getting to see the National Guard soldiers work with our ATF agents and the rest of their law enforcement brethren, providing a service in DC that the community loves. I think if you look at the feedback, and I encourage reporters anytime I talk to them, just go talk to average members of the DC community, and I think they love it. These National Guard members go to the same churches as them. Their kids are in the same school. They are many and most times from this exact same community. And what's so cool about the National Guard is you can be deployed abroad for the security of your country, but you can also be used to improve improve and help secure your own community. And I think what President Trump is doing in D.C., our nation's capital and the most amazing country that has existed in the history of the world, to repair it and beautify it and make it something we can all be proud of, where you can walk your kids down the street and not be afraid of a violent crime happening to you, is such an obvious outcome to me that the slippery slope conversation of militarizing DC and whether it's martial law, I think if you actually talk to people, it's nothing like that. And when we had 15, 18, 20 reporters, and I was talking to them a couple of weeks ago, and one of the places I struggle the most with the press in our country is, and I understand why the incentive structure is this way, but they're incentivized to get clicks. They're incentivized, that's how they get their ad dollars, and so the entire system has been set up to tell a story, create a headline to get a person to click on it so you get rewarded. It's classic like Pavlovian behavior. And so if you think of the Army Parade was to celebrate 250 years of our United States Army. We are older than the United States of America itself. I tell soldiers often, they and the people that came before them and the ones that are coming after actually built and are sustaining this great nation. I don't know if you remember the headlines, but so many people wrote about this militarized parade, that it was going to go down DC with these tanks and it was going to destroy the city and destroy the roads. And I can't tell you, I would guess there were thousands of articles written about this in the months leading up. This was President Trump's big act to do something despicable, is what a lot of people wrote. The parade happened, and I think it ended up having more views than the Super Bowl this past year.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think it had 148 million views. As far as I know, we had $800 worth of total damage, where one tank nicked one curb. And almost everyone I know that watched it said, man, that was good, wholesome television. And our recruiting numbers, like the number of people wanting to join, skyrocketed that day, that week, and the month that followed. So from my perspective, it was everything we and the president said it was going to be. And then when I was sitting with these reporters, I asked them, I thought many of them wrote the story on the front end about how bad it could be, but did any of them write a follow-up story to say, actually, it was exactly what they said it was going to be? And the slippery slope argument that they continue to make to sell headlines doesn't tend to ever actually happen. And so for the average American, we keep telling these boogeyman stories about what the president is trying to do to secure our communities. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really harmful. It's degrading our belief in the system unnecessarily. And every interaction I have had has been a positive one.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, the press is just a fucking disaster. They're on their way out. I mean, the latest debacle is, that African-American guy that stabbed the Ukrainian
in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yep.
With like 3 times in the neck. And then nobody covers it. I think Fox News eventually covered it. But then you got Daniel Penny, who stands up for somebody, chokes a bad guy out, winds up dead. And that's everywhere.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the press is on their way out. I think that's why podcasts are just booming right now. But back to the National Guard thing. I mean, just for all of us that don't live in DC or LA or are we in Chicago now?
We're not.
Okay.
Not yet.
I mean, what does it look like when the National Guard is activated in a city with a tremendous rate of violent crime? I mean, what's the plan of action? What does it look like for the people that live there?
Yeah. So very specifically, Shawn, what we do is we go to a set of people who have joined, they've raised their right hand to defend our country. And we say, you are being activated. We're going to give you orders to come do this mission that in the instance of the DC National Guard is right in the strike zone of what they are intended to do and have always been intended to do. They because the DC is a little bit quirky, there's no governor over it. So the Secretary of the Army, me, is essentially from the president through the Secretary of War down to me, has the authority to activate them. We turn them on, we bring them in, we train them on whatever the mission is. And then we look to the local, in this instance, we look to the local law enforcement leaders from the federal agency and we say, how can we help? Where do you need us? What can we do? What do you need them doing? Where can they be most valuable? Here are the assets we have. A lot of them are law enforcement officers. A lot of them have all of these talents. What's so cool about the National Guard is because they're full-time in other jobs, we can get these really niche-y experiences to help us. We have engineers, we have computer programmers, we have people who are in law enforcement, and we can help bolster whatever the need of the community is. And so, as it's specifically related to DC in the beginning, we put them out on presence patrols. And one of the things I think that from my time in Iraq, you heard presence patrol and it kind of like sent shivers up your spine because of the stupid presence patrols that we would do in Iraq, in my opinion, because the mission hadn't been defined, and you would be doing it as more of a check the block exercise. For this exercise in DC, that's not it at all. We have communities and neighborhoods that are suffering terrible, like a scourge of violent crime, and by having our soldiers there, it is making a meaningful impact. So I think last week I heard that carjackings in the city are down 85%. 85% since President Trump did this. And again, to your point, Shawn, like no one's writing about it that I'm seeing, but like this is obviously making a difference. And this is the thing that I think happened in the last election. Americans are just sick of being doublespeak to. They're sick of the media contorting the story and telling them things that their own eyes are telling them are lies. And so from everything I have seen from the DC National Guard, they are doing noble missions. They almost all are happy to be in their own community, and it is going to make a lasting impact and kind of show our nation that we can recover these cities.
We talk a lot on this show about protecting your family and being prepared for the worst case scenario. But there's one area of protection that a lot of us, myself included, for a long time tend to procrastinate on, and that's life insurance. I've had term life insurance for several years now, and I remember the exact moment I realized I needed it. It was right around the time my son was born. I started thinking about the mortgage, the kid's education, and all the expenses I'd want covered if the unthinkable happens and I'm not here to provide for them anymore. But having a plan in place is what actually allows you to breathe easier. If you've been putting this off because you think it's too expensive or too much of a hassle, you need to check out Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today, made for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. A lot of people assume their work-life insurance is enough, but most policies don't provide nearly enough coverage and don't follow you if you leave your job. Fabric offers affordable, high-quality life insurance, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by families just like yours for over 50 years. And Fabric is rated excellent on Trustpilot with over 1,900 five-star reviews. There's no risk, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. meetfabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
We don't have to sit back passively anymore and just say, "Oh, the criminals have it. We gotta move out to the country to be safe." We can go in there with the might of the federal government, partnered with local law enforcement, and take back these cities under President Trump.
I mean, it sounds great, but what does it look like from the people that live there? You know, when I hear, I mean, I was in Iraq, I spent a long time in the Middle East, you know, and I've been a part of presence patrols. And when I hear presence patrol, I think of a convoy of Humvees with 50 cals and twin 240s on the top with, you know, of the turret and up armored. I mean, is that what it looks like, or is it checkpoints, or what is it?
So specifically what it would look like is you would see soldiers most times from your community who are trying to help secure your community. And the way that a trailing indicator to me that they are being valued is the number of selfies that these soldiers are taking is remarkable. Kids are coming up, grandparents are coming up, young and old are wanting to thank them for their service, wanting to thank them for doing this for their community. When we meet with the DC leadership, this is kind of one of the quiet secrets of the whole thing. If you actually meet with the police, if you meet with the leadership at kind of nearly all levels in my experience, one of the first things they say is, thank you. Please tell your members, please tell your soldiers, thank you. Like, this is really helpful. We're really happy to have them in the community. I think if you look at what the DC mayor said last week, they're starting to build a plan around, now that they actually have all of these resources and these law enforcement officers, they're leaning into the idea that they can improve their city. And I think this is exactly what President Trump wanted to do, is empower DC and empower our nation's capital to fix itself with federal resources and build the momentum to go do this throughout the nation.
What does it look like? I mean, if you thought of this, I mean, what does it look like if they get into, I mean, I don't even know what we would call it here. I was just going to call it a tick, troops in contact. But I mean, you know, with the MS-13 gangs, the cartels, the Bloods, the Crips, I mean, you know, Hell's Angels, I don't know. You know, there's gang members all over the place, you know, tons of different gangs. I mean, what does it look like if MS-13 pushes back against the National Guard and happens to fire upon them? I mean, do they have ROEs or?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would see the full might and fury of our United States Army. They would see the full might and fury of the most powerful government in the history of the world. And I think the President and Secretary of War have been very clear that they are taking a hard line, and that kind of violence is no longer acceptable in our nation. And so I don't think we would ever wish that on our soldiers. I think anyone who has deployed on behalf of the nation knows the cost that comes from those moments. I mean, my dad is going on 80, and it never really clicked to me why, when I woke him up my entire childhood, I'd kind of poke him and he'd sit up like a mousetrap. And the day before I deployed, we were at a Ruby Tuesdays in Watertown, New York. And we were talking about it. I just asked him if he remembered those moments in Vietnam. And he kind of was dodging the answer. I was like, seriously, like, do you remember them? And he said, oh, every night I have bad dreams on it. And it was like, for now 55 years, the man's been having bad dreams about his time there. You don't wish these moments of conflict on somebody. So I don't want to sound light or callous when I say it. But this mission, to me, unlike a lot of the ones in the early 2000s, is a noble mission. It is purpose-built for our National Guard members to provide security to their own communities. And these are heroes who have raised their right hand and said they want to go do this mission. And so whoever it is that threatens our soldiers, they will see violence like an act of God coming at them, and they will see support coming from all directions. And I think that they will learn very quickly that the standard of what they are able to do in our nation has changed.
What is the long-term plan? I mean, they could move. They could, these cells, these gangs, I mean, they could move to other cities and set up there, where there's less pushback from the government. So, I mean, what is the long-term plan? I mean, we've seen a lot of cities that have just kneecapped law enforcement: Seattle, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York. I mean, the list goes on. And so, I mean, is there a plan to, and I don't know how this works. You know what I mean? That's a state and local entity. So I don't know how much control, the federal government would have over that. But I mean, what is the long-term plan?
I think as it relates to DC, if you talk to the president or his advisors or the Secretary of War or the Attorney General Pam Bondi, they are in it until it's done, and they are not defining that moment of done yet, because it's gotten so bad that I think a lot of the purpose of this is to wake Americans up and make them realize that they have incredible power in how they vote. I think you made the reference, Shawn. If you look at a lot of these cities, they keep voting in the same people. And I think a lot of this is kind of the water getting turned up on the frog. People don't realize you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to accept that when you park your car on the street, it's going to get broken into. You don't have to accept that your 12-year-old can't board a bus and go to the local convenience store and go to an arena to watch a sporting event and come back home. Like, we as a nation can win this war and make ourselves safe again. And so I think the answer is it will last as long as it takes under President Trump to return us to a place of less than average violence when compared to peer countries around the world. And we're not near that yet.
So it's essentially kind of leading by example to the local law enforcement through the National Guard.
Oh, and law enforcement love it. Like, when you talk to the local law enforcement, they've won the lottery. They have signed up. One of the amazing parts of being at ATF is I get to be around all these law enforcement, and they desperately want to clean up their own communities. This is empowering them with all of these new enablers that they just typically don't have. And so I think it's less modeling good behavior for them and instead empowering them to do what they are so good at and want to do, but they've just been under-resourced and underappreciated for so long.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.